Hi everyone, Dutch Reefer here. Today I am reviewing the Maxspect Gyre, both the first generation as well as the second generation, which has the advanced controller. To start off, as you all might know, water circulation is a very important thing to have in your reef aquarium, because any spots where there's no flow in your tank are prone to build up algae and other nasty stuff that you don't want. So that's especially where the Maxspect Gyre shines, because it has a circular flow, which has a lamel-like flow pattern, which, as you can see on the top of this video, covers the entire depth of the tank, or the width, just the way you're looking at it. This is a very important thing, because this way, in my tank, I only need one circulation pump, which is this Maxspect Gyre XF250, to cover the entire tank. So other than the inlet nozzle, which you can see on the very far left top right there, and the Maxspect Gyre, which is on the right top, I have no additional pumps in there to create flow. And as you can see, this one Maxspect Gyre XF250 is enough to cover the entire tank, because you can see the water is going all the way from the top to the bottom and then back to the bottom of the Maxspect Gyre. So I've been using a Maxspect Gyre for about 2 years now, just over 2 years. The first one I used was an XF150, which is the first generation, which eventually broke down. I bought it secondhand, so I didn't have any receipt, or I didn't know how it was used in the past. So when it broke down, I decided to buy the second generation, which is the XF250. There are various sizes of the Maxspect Gyre. You have the 130 or the 230, which is the smallest size. Then there's the XF250 or 150, which is the middle one. And since the last generation, they also have the XF280, which is even larger than this one. And that's especially when you have a very large tank, like a 2-meter tank or larger. So, on to the details. I'll zoom in a little. As you can see, well, it's not very clean, but I don't think they should be clean, because this way it blends into the reef nicely. It's attached using a large magnet on the back end. You can see it like this. This magnet is very strong and is strong enough to hold the gyre to the tank with this, I think 1 centimeter or 12 millimeters even, glass. And it's very sturdy, so you don't have to worry that the magnet won't hold it. It will. To show you a little bit more details about this pump, I have taken the old one, the XF150, which actually is broken, but that way I can use it to show you. The gyre consists of a center body, and on both ends of that body you can add one of these. As you can see, this rotor will cause it to move in this direction. And this way, the water that's coming in will create flow like this. As you can see, I have the old magnet here, and it will attach very firmly to the pump when you do it like this. The biggest differences between the XF150 and the 250 are the size of the rotors. Well, the size is quite the same. On the left you can see the one that comes from the XF150, which has very thin and relatively small blades, which cause the flow in your tank. And the right one, which is the XF250s, has somewhat wider blades, and this way it's a little less prone to break and will create, for me, a little more flow. As you can see, This is the best way to show. It has about, well, I didn't count them before, about 10 to 12 blades, and this one has a lot more. Also, you can see that this one is closed, and this one has a more open side structure. So that's one of the differences. One of the other differences, or actually upgrades, is the controller. Right here you can see the traditional controller, which only has a few options. So this is a controller. You can use it to set your gyre, and there are a few settings you can use using the old controller, which are a constant speed mode, a pulsing mode, and an alternating gyre mode, which is on the back. This picture shows it the best. Constant will obviously mean that it will be moving at one speed all of the time. The pulsing mode will cause it to go to a specific speed setting on a certain amount of time, then move back to 0 and then repeat that. And the alternating gyre mode is that it also will move backward. And the settings that I'm currently using on my advanced controller, which I'll show you in a minute, is actually it's a setting that's similar to the alternating gyre mode. So it's moving both forward and backward. So as you can see, this one is quite simple. It's also, I think, the cheapest, and it does the job. It does the job well. If you're looking for just a pump that does what it needs to do, create flow in your tank, then this one is just fine actually. I have upgraded to an advanced controller when I bought the XF250. I'll show it, it's right here. It has a small OLED screen which shows the current settings that you're using right there. And I'll quickly give you an overview of the settings that I'm using. So as I mentioned before, I'm using a variant of the alternating gyre mode. It's written right here. There's A and B. B is when you add another gyre, so you can actually add 2 gyres to one controller. As you can see, only one is attached. There's an open slot here that I can use if I want. So right here, it moved back. I'll quickly give you an overview of the settings. When it's moving forward, it's going at 70% for 10 seconds. Then it takes 4 seconds to slow down to 0. Then it goes to -50, and it takes about 15 seconds. Oh, it takes 4 seconds to go down. No, I screwed it up. I'll tell you again. 70% forward. It takes 10 seconds to spin up. It takes 4 seconds to spin down. When it's at full speed, it will take 15 seconds to go in full 70% mode. And it will take 4 seconds when it's on -50%. So that's what these numbers mean. And as you can see, this gives you a lot of flexibility. So you can, with this advanced controller, you can give a lot more settings than with the traditional controller. The traditional old controller gives only a few settings, and this one lets you not only decide percentages, but also the amount of time it's in a certain amount of in a certain setting. So that's definitely one of the pros. You can even, when there's 2 gyres attached to one advanced controller, you can also use 2 predefined ocean modes, which then will simulate a current that's currently in the ocean, and that way it will give more variation to your flow, which obviously your corals and your fish will probably like. For me, this alternating gyre mode, so from +70 to -50, works fine. It gives a nice variable flow in the tank, creating virtually no dead spots at all. So I'm very happy with the settings it set. And yeah, I can really recommend this Maxspect Gyre. I have been using it for about 2 years, like I mentioned. And if this one breaks down eventually, I will definitely buy a new one, maybe a 3rd generation when it's there, because I'm just very satisfied with the amount of flow it creates.